Welcome back, everybody, to the ROI Online Podcast. And today, I'm very proud to introduce you to Erika Bryant. She's a StoryBrand guide. Her agency is Piece of Cake Marketing. Erika, welcome to the ROI Online Podcast.
Thanks, Steve. Nice to be here.
So, you've had a very diverse, you've got this great talent stack of history of working into pretty much helping people set up and run their business better with their marketing, their business development. You're a story brand guide. Um, Tell me why that really resonated with you. Give us a little backstory and then why that you just headed that direction.
So I started my career pretty young. I was 20 when I was hired by the first consulting company that I worked for. And I worked traditionally in marketing roles throughout my entire career. So I'm a 15-year marketer. And I've worked for companies on the brand side. I've worked on the consulting side. I've worked on the agency side and gotten all of these different viewpoints of what marketing looks like. In 2012, I started my own company and did a lot of marketing campaigns and a lot of marketing activities for different companies. But when I read the StoryBrand book, even after going to school for it and working in it and doing it for so many years, the clouds parted. Everything just sort of aligned. In fact, I read the book and I think I went through it basically cover to cover in one day. And immediately I was like, how do I get this into my business? What can I do to make this happen? And so I started looking into, I started trying to do it myself. And then I started looking into the guide program and found that they actually would teach this to me. So I signed up, and unfortunately I had to wait a few months because I was on vacation for the next one coming up. But it was a much needed clarity that I needed in order to help my clients in a better way. And I look back at some of those projects and I'm like, man, if only I'd had the StoryBrand framework for that project, could it have gone much better?
Totally. I think that you're well positioned to really relate with business owners because they're trying to figure it out as they go, or they're having to rely on marketing directors or people that they hire. But most of the time, these folks lack a basic understanding of the perspective of the business owner. How am I going to make this initiative show some sort of return? How can it connect with my company and not just be this fun little ditzy marketing effort? Talk to us about the couple of experiences that helped you really realize that and helps you relate so well with folks that are really just wanting to make their business better.
I can look back at a couple of projects that I've done and see, I guess after you have the project, there's always a time where you look back and you're like, okay, did we make the money that we wanted to make? Did we produce the ROI that we wanted to? And you can, see your mistakes. And that's the beauty of marketing, right? Is you can see your mistakes and you can do it differently the next time. And you can apply all of these different learnings to the next situation. But I think what's really powerful is looking back and seeing exactly what the problem is so powerful for your future projects. So for instance, if I look back at some of the projects that I've done in terms of copy or in terms of, the data that's available now, I can see, wow, that probably wasn't the greatest copy. And I can see exactly why that failed. Then I can use what I know now to make it better. And if there's all these different things that you think about when you're creating a campaign, right? Where are you going to host this campaign? Who's going to be the target of the campaign? And all these different triggers that you have to figure out and strategize for. And ultimately, if you've targeted the exact thing that made that project fail, you've actually earned way more in intelligence factor and being able to prevent those things the next time than, the money that you made off that campaign sometimes. So for me, I feel like pinpointing those exact things is the ultimate goal, and being able to get that better ROI the next time is a huge lesson.
Yeah, there's several levels of this asset that you're building. There's the immediate takeaways, the ROI, or did we get enough appointments or conversations, whatever the goal was. But the other thing is polishing or improving your your residual assets that people will experience over a long period of time. So when you're talking about the branding or the messaging, those are some other things that are hard to measure. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think we try as marketers to measure customer lifetime value and, clicks on, when social media first came out, it's a great example. We got to get all the likes, all the likes. And then I think a lot of people realize it ain't about the likes, it's about the engagement score and all these other things. But I think, as we move along, you get to see some of that stuff unfold. Right? You can only do the best with what you have at the time. And, we have way more data now than we did ever before. So we're able to dive into those things. But yeah, you get to look at customer lifetime value and see, did this one campaign perform on its own? Okay. Or did it contribute to the greater good of the next campaign and the next campaign? I can't tell you how many times I've launched a campaign and gotten far more results outside of that campaign than I ever it just wasn't even on the radar, right? Like I launched an email marketing masterclass, for example. So I went and I did this talk about email marketing to this specific group of targeted people. I launched it online. I talked about it on my LinkedIn and in my Facebook groups and all these different places. I'd sent emails about it and all this good stuff. And yes, people came to the email marketing masterclass. But what also happened is I sold a $11,000 project as a result of somebody attending that thing who saw that I knew more than what I was talking about in that campaign. I also got a new agency partnership who wanted to bring me in for some strategy as a result of one of the emails that I sent about that, right? So I think, yeah, you can measure that one campaign and, oh, did I get the signups that I needed? But you also have this plethora of other things that are happening in terms of awareness and in terms of other money that you're making on the side of that campaign that is, working for you as you show up in the world.
Yeah, it's the long game mindset, but how it fits into the long game when everyone's trying to just see the short game item. And the struggle for a lot of folks in our position is to communicate the long game vision when they're just looking for a quick win. How do you navigate that trap, if you will? Because you can fall for that trap.
You can. As a business owner, you try to take your emotions out of it, right? So with an abundance mindset, we know that if I put it out there and if I put myself out there, there's more than enough for everybody to go around. And if I do all these things, then all of these things are going to happen to me, right? Like, I strongly feel that when we remove our emotions from the outcome and we say, you know what, if this project is supposed to land, it will. If I did my best in this particular arena, then things will happen. And I can honestly say that pre-StoryBrand and post-StoryBrand are two different scenarios in terms of ROI. Pre-StoryBrand, I think we did great. I've got some great measurements and metrics from other campaigns that I've done, and I really consider them to be successful even still to this day. Post StoryBrand and applying the StoryBrand framework to these projects and these campaigns and these emails and all this good stuff, exponential results, right? So I can see a direct correlation between that and StoryBrand. Along with that, I feel like I can rest a lot on, hey, the StoryBrand framework works. I don't have to guess at these things anymore. I don't have to I don't have to be just sitting back here like, hope this thing works. It works every time, right? So I don't have to worry about any of those things.
Seems like the StoryBrand framework helps your customers also start to get a deeper application on how they can use it to communicate better in their organization, or they start to take those lessons and apply them to other areas, not just the marketing part.
Absolutely. I have one client who applied it to his training, his onboarding and training, and almost within like 2 weeks, I would have to say, he was calling me back saying, this is amazing. My whole staff doesn't look at, he had it was really sweet. He had 12 different values that he that he had for his people. And, nobody knew what any of those things are. And he did the whole thing where he walked around and he gave people $5 if he could recite them all, and nobody could ever recite them all. And it was very frustrated. But then after applying the StoryBrand framework to all of it and getting really clear on what those things are and getting rid of all the noise, people understand and they can recite it. And if they can recite it, they can implement it, right? So StoryBrand doesn't just apply to marketing, it applies to all business, I believe.
Yeah, I think it addresses, so everybody says we're in the attention economy now, and attention is like you're getting someone's attention, but I think really it's about earning the focus. So you can get someone's attention, but you can lose them just as fast as you got their attention. But there are certain ways to connect with the brain deeply and earn their focus, where basically you get more time to go ahead and prove out what the initial attraction was from that attention point. So
Absolutely.
that example that you're talking about with the person, that his intention was good, he wanted it to create this culture, but when he realized he's making it more like what's the old 1440 modem, how we process. But if you quickly update just use the system of the framework, then quickly you can make it more like fiber optic connection.
That's so true. I have a favorite quote. I'll be interested if you'll be interesting.
Yeah, and that's harder said than done, right?
Yeah, but it talks about, if you have that focus, like you want people to focus on your brand. And I heard, actually, it was very interesting. I went to a conference maybe 2 years ago, and in one session, this woman said, and I will never forget this, she said, people tell us that we have the mind span or the attention span of a goldfish. And that, and they have all these different things that they cite as to back that point up, right? 140 characters on Twitter, all this scrolling feeds or whatever. But tell me why Netflix has this button that comes up in the middle of a show that you're watching or in the middle of a series that you're watching, and it says, "Are you still watching?" It's not an attention span problem. It is an interesting problem, right? Are you interesting or not? And then in the very next segment that I went to, somebody flashed up the picture of the goldfish and was like, "We don't have the attention span. Here's why." And and went off about it. But it's so true, right? If you'll be interesting, I'll be interested. I'll keep watching. I'll binge watch 10 episodes if it's really, really good. Mm-hmm. We just have to be interesting.
So I think about, as a business owner, we get that our parking lot needs to be clean and very clear where we're supposed to park, where the door is, where the open sign is. We get the physical world, the need that we need to have everything in order to facilitate a flow and communicate where people go. But as far as knowing how to do that virtually, where most of us really have struggled, most of the business folks, even marketing directors, a marketing director may get it, but they're having a hard time communicating the value to the business owner because they're legitimately asking, how's this going to make things better? And if you think, Gary Vee has a great quote where he talks about how our grandparents were better suited to take advantage of social media now than we are, because they got how important it was that you just need to serve your customers and connect with them as humans. So when I think of your social media campaigns or whatever, we all understand the value of having a sample platter. Here, taste this. We get that, and it's a way to be generous. It's a way to connect. It's a way to let people sample, and that's all that we're doing in the virtual world. We're doing a version of that.
That's very true. And a lot of the business owners that I talk to, and I suffered from this in my own marketing life, if you will, which is why I think I get it really well, is we sit down to write an email or we sit down to write a piece of marketing material, and we just all of a sudden lose our human ability and we put on this marketing hat and we start talking like we don't even talk in real life.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind because I used to do this. I used to sit down and be like, oh, well, I need to, and then I got to address this and I got to address this and I got to, and I've got to, and at the end of it, I've got an email that goes off on 6 different rabbit trails and doesn't actually connect home. And at the end, I'm like, okay, so if you want to buy from me, you just let me know, right? none of that works, right? And you might scrape some off the top of people who, maybe read that way, but that's not effective. When we're clear, when we're concise, when we tell people exactly what we want them to do, they're going to do it. And a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, like, this email is so short. And I'm like, yeah, well, that email made $60,000. Why? Because it was clear, because I told them exactly what to do. And so we've got to stop putting on that funny little marketing hat that we do, and we got to start being human.
That email's so short. Yeah, so is your attention span, right? You think
Unless
about,
you're interesting.
right? So we get all these emails. I was given a class on, impactful application of using video for your emails. So every day I get, I don't know how many emails, 100, 200. And so I look through the titles right quick and see which ones I need to spend some time on. And then when I open them, and if it's real long, I default to, I'll read that later when I have time. But if it's real quick and impactful, I can quickly process it and decide what to do with that. And I don't think people are realizing that you need to create this content as if you were sitting and having a beer with someone and they were your friend. How would you talk about what you do to that person?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it's so hard. Well, why is it so hard to communicate professionally in that way?
I think it's because we get in our heads and we tell ourselves these stories about what the other side is looking like, right? Oh, I've got to nail the target. I've got to nail exactly their voice, and I've got to speak to them in exactly their pain point. And if I don't get the pain point right, then I'm not going to get the business. And it's all these stories we're telling ourselves that just simply aren't true. And I think, going back to what I said previously, we have to take the emotions out of it. I know it's very difficult to do that, but we've got to take our own anxieties about the performance of this and just trust the process, right? So we can trust and we can lean on to these systems that we know are proven to work, right? Like the StoryBrand framework, proven to work. In fact, they proved it. They did StoryBrand HQ. They proved it. They wrote a book about it. They did some courses on it. Dr. J.J. Peterson went and got his doctorate on it. And then I learned it. And then I have proven it for myself with my clients, right? So now I can rest in the fact of, if I follow this framework, if I talk about your story in terms of you being the guide and them being the hero and guiding them to get them what they want and giving them a clear plan to action and all that stuff, I know it's going to work. So I can remove all my anxiety out of that because I have a plan. A lot of marketers and a lot of business owners are like, I really know how to do the thing that I know how to do. That might be my craft. That might be, whatever the business is. It's whatever your passion is, and your passion may not be in marketing, right? And so you have to trust in frameworks, and you have to trust in other guides to help you get what you need. I literally just experienced this last week. I was having a ton of anxiety about the accounting in my business because I had talked to somebody about some particular thing, and they were like, yeah, if you're doing it this way, you're doing it wrong. Well, I was doing it that way. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have a handle on this. I have a CPA. He's not real responsive, or proactive, I should say. He's responsive, but definitely not proactive in telling me what, and I'm like, am I missing this? What is going on? And so I'm scouring the web, like, what do I need? Who do I need? Right? What is it? And I felt in that moment, I thought, wow, this is exactly what a business owner feels like when they don't know anything about marketing, totally. Right? And that's how I felt about the accounting in my business. And so I went back to a woman that I had talked to as an accountant, and I was like, okay, ready to accept your proposal to clear my books and get all this stuff straight for all this good stuff. But I can sympathize with not knowing what you don't know and the anxiety that comes with that. And then just trying all the things. I've been in business for a long time, for 8 years. And I haven't had, this level of detail that I really actually needed in my business until something scared me. Right. Yeah. And I don't want to be, and I'm like, ah! So I can imagine what that feels like for business owners who don't know anything about marketing, and something scaring them, like, wow, I just spent $5,000 on a campaign and I didn't get my money back, or I didn't make the targeted whatever, or I didn't see the results from that particular campaign. That's painful, right? And so we need to get it right, and we need to test all the things and bring our experience in and do it right the next time.
So let's talk about why you went back to this lady. So in that moment when you were swirling around the drain, okay, you felt,
It's real emotional, okay?
yeah. Well, you felt vulnerable. You felt like, oh my gosh, everything I worked for is at risk. Okay, you didn't know who to trust. You were grabbing for someone to trust. You don't know, and so you went back to this lady because you knew her, you met her, you had some level of, but you still had to vet her a little bit, no?
Yeah, so I've known that I needed an accountant for a while. Call it 6 months, a year, something like that. In fact, I probably knew way before that, but I wasn't actively looking for someone. I had talked to another StoryBrand guide and I'd said, do you know any accountants, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, yes, I have an amazing one. She's here in Texas. So she knows, it's really great to have somebody who knows the laws of the specific state that you're in. That's important. And so why don't you meet her? So I talked to her and I was like, man, she's really smart. I feel like she knows her stuff, but how do I know if she knows her stuff or not? Right? Like, she just sounds smart to me, but I can, how do I even vet this person? And I looked at all her stuff online and her reviews, and, kind of had been kicking the tires. And for whatever reason, I just kept having this resistance of, I'm not quite ready to pull the trigger yet. Oh, that's a lot of money to spend on accounting, something I've been doing for myself for 8 years. But it wasn't until the pain was great enough and this scared feeling that I had about my business. And you're right. I was like, everything I have is at stake, right? If I don't do this right, the IRS is going to come after me or whatever. Right. And I just want to be an honest business owner, right? And so it wasn't until the pain was that great that I actually was like, okay, I need to sign your proposal. So she had sent me a proposal, but I was just kind of was like, the pain wasn't great enough for me to sign it yet. Had nothing to do with her. And I even went back and I was like Googling different things, and I was looking in Facebook groups that I'm in for business owners to see if there's anybody recommended. And so I looked up a couple of people who were recommended, and their reviews were like, not that great. I was like, man, if these are the people they're recommending, but she's great, then maybe, she's good. So I just did like a skinny version of her proposal to test her out, and we're going to start working together this week. So I feel really confident in that, but I'm also not throwing all my eggs in one basket like I know a lot of business owners do when they trust, marketers and things like that.
Yeah. So if you were to kind of evaluate her platform, what would you do different now, knowing that what that persona feels and experiences, and how much research? So to the business owners kind of listening, wondering, well, what would she have done different? Kind of draw a picture of what that would have looked like that would have helped you.
Interesting, because when I was looking for this, I was like, man, I need to go into the StoryBrand Slack community and tell people, hey, next accountant you have, this is the message for them, right?
Mm-hmm. Serious.
These are the things that I was thinking and feeling and doing at the time that I had this need. I would say oftentimes we don't pull, number one is oftentimes we don't pull the trigger until we're ready, right? And so going back to my thoughts about an abundance mindset, I can talk to somebody about their marketing or something like that, and they may say no to my proposal, but that doesn't mean they're going to say no forever, right? The pain just may not be great for them at that time. So that's number one. The second thing is, I think oftentimes business owners are really afraid to pinpoint the exact feeling that somebody is feeling because they're too afraid to get into the emotions of that business owner, right? Like, so I'm saying, take your emotions out of it, but talk about their emotions big time, right? So if I, during that search, had found, does the IRS scare the blank out of you? I would have been like, I'm listening. Here I am. Tell me all the things, right? But I didn't see any of that. All I saw was, we're the best accountants to fill your needs, and it was that over and over and over again. Or maybe no messaging at all, just so-and-so CPA, so-and-so accountant. And it's like, well, that's great, but I don't know what you know. You're not showing me your zone of genius here. I can also tell you, oh, here's another good example. I was thinking about painting my kitchen cabinets white, right? This is a big deal. They're natural wood right now. They're stained. And once you paint, you cannot go back. You have to replace, right? So it's a big discussion. So what I wanted to know was, and this was just a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I wanted to know what's the design trend right now? If I were to paint my cabinets in like 2 years, are we going back to the wood stuff and I just need to get over it, right? I know this is, there's a point here, I promise you. So I kept looking and I was like, you know what, as I look, especially on, with all the data and all the data tool sets that we have and all the AI stuff that we have, surely I'm going to get retargeted with the answer that I need, right? Because I do that all the time. I like Google something and then all of a sudden, I've got lots of things in my feed to look at. Not a single interior designer had any lead gens whatsoever on what the design trends are, if you should paint your kitchen. I mean, and these are like, I think, general questions that most people ask, right? So I popped into one of my entrepreneur communities and I was like, hey, are there any interior designers here? I have a question. You might get a client out of it, right? And not a single person replied to me with a lead gen, which makes me feel like it doesn't exist, right? Mm-hmm. And so that makes me feel like the disconnect between what business owners are searching for and what consumers are searching for is there between what business owners are experiencing, right? And so what we do as marketers is we sit down in a vacuum and we think up our lead gens and we think up what we want people to hear from us. And so we say things like, do you want this free audit for your whatever? Or do you want this free assessment for your this? Or do you want this? And it's so far removed from what questions people are asking when they have the need for your service. So regardless of my experience with needing an accountant or needing an interior designer to tell me what was up, I really needed someone to listen to the conversations that are happening in all these groups and provide the answer. Because more often than not, it's a common question, right? I don't know. Tangent. Was that tangent? That was a tangent.
No, it's like, it's so often that we move it out of our way to walk around it, whatever that answer is that we're sitting right there, but we're avoiding it because we're thinking it's more complicated or we're just not thinking. Mm-hmm. That's why I think conversations like this that we're having, there are things that someone will listen to this conversation and they'll get a light bulb and they'll get the inspiration of, oh, I wasn't thinking about it in that way. And if I did it like this, then there's this empowerment that comes out of it. But if we're stuck in our own little world and we're just not exposing ourselves to new conversations or ideas, that's where we end up producing, hey, we're the best accountant for your needs. I see this one that pops up in my LinkedIn every Monday at the same time. We're the best ones for your period. And it's the same thing over and over and over. And I just giggle, right? But I know no one's clicking on that because it's not going, yeah, but what about me? In this new age, do we really need that? Or do we need a better enlightened version of that due to this experience that we've been in the sheltering in place time?
Yeah, I have a formula that I tell the people in my zone of influence, if you will, on how to achieve this. Uh-huh. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready. I love this. This is a framework, by the way. Go.
Framework, formula. Yeah. Know what you want. Mm-hmm. Know what you offer. Show up, give, ask. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You have to know what you want for your business. If you're creating a business that you don't want and you show up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't exactly what I wanted, which I did. Ask me how I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you might as well just go home at that point, right? So build something that you want, know what it is that you want. The second is know what you offer. If you offer things that are in the woo, right? So I offer marketing services. Great. What can you do for me? What specific things can you do for me? Are you going to write my website copy? Are you going to develop my website? Who knows? Nobody knows because you didn't tell them exactly what you offer.
Mm-hmm.
Show up. Most people don't know that you're sitting in your office waiting for the phone to ring. They literally don't know. So you have to show up and tell them. Show up massively. Show up where they exist. Give. Basically, these two work in tandem together, but I think they deserve their own buckets as well. So when you show up and give massively, then good things happen, right? So you're showing up in your zone of genius. You're being generous. Where you are massively generous, the money will follow, right? So people just need to know, like when I showed up in the email marketing masterclass chat that I had with people, they saw beyond the email marketing, and then they hired me for other things to the tune of a 5-figure project, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one is ask. So you can show up and give and show up and give and show up and give, and that is great. Then you earn the right to ask. But when you show up and ask, then you just haven't earned the right to do that, right? And then it goes back to the fact that you actually have to call your people to action. You have to actually tell them what to do business with you. So know what you want, know what you offer, show up, give, and ask. And that's what I do in my business. And a lot of other people that I coach do the same thing, and they are winning big time because of it.
I love it. So
Mm-hmm.
there, you give value. There's your little samples, and you're giving them your best samples, right? But you're saying, hey, if you want more of this, then why don't we work on this together so you can do the same thing?
Absolutely.
What's the best example of someone that you really are proud of the problem you helped them solve?
I'm currently working with a roofing client. And this roofing client came to me and they said, Erika, over the last 10 years, we've wasted so much money with other marketers. And in fact, he was so pessimistic about marketers and saying, how they just take people's money and nothing they do ever works. And, he can't tell me how much money he's just, thrown out of the airplane to not ever get back. And so the sales cycle for this project was long, mostly because I had to convince him that I wasn't looped in with those types of marketers, right? I have a guarantee on my work. If your marketing doesn't work, I will do more for you until it works, right? So I had to talk to him and his team for a long time to get them comfortable with me and build trust. There was a lot of in-person meetings. There was a lot of taking phone calls and answering questions and things like that. And since we've started working together, I basically told him the reason all this, like I could sell you on doing exactly what you asked me to do. Let's go do some Facebook ads or let's go do some LinkedIn ads. I could sell you on that all day long if I didn't care about the outcome. But I care about the outcome, and I need to tell you that your brand doesn't look as professional as you want it to. Your social media does not have any, like all these random things are happening on your social media, and it's not doing you any service. When I search for you, this is what comes up. When I look at your website, it doesn't look as professional as I know you want it to be, and I know your company is. And so I will not sell you on the thing that you asked me for because that's not your problem, right? Your problem is your messaging. Your problem is your branding. Let's fix those things first. Then we can get to do all the, because you wanted to do some radio ads and some Facebook ads and other things like that. And I was like, no point. Like, yeah, sure, throw your money at that, but no point. It's not going to work for you. And so now we're getting almost to the very end of the project. And, there's been some hailstorms around here in Texas, which is kind of, we've got tons of roofers around here because of that. And everybody gets a new roof every few years. But the whole point of that is to say that if people come to us and we sell them exactly what they're asking for, we're not really doing them a service, right? We need to understand what they want, sell them what they want and what they need, right? That's what they're coming to me for. That's what they're giving me the expertise for. So have we reached success yet? Not yet. We just launched the new website. We just launched some brochures and things like that. And there's some hailstorms happening right now. But I have a feeling, I have a sinking suspicion that it's coming.
Yeah, I love that story because it illustrates the trap that most of the competitors that are in our industry, they're quick to fix the problem that's not the real problem. And to be able to discuss what the real problem is to help them see around the corner and understand it takes a little bit of confidence, takes some experience, but it also is a way to really relate with them as a business person. I can do this, but I'm giving you more of the same. And you're trying to control and drive as a business owner should, but you're telling me to fix the wrong things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So this has been an excellent conversation, and I really appreciate you being a great guest today. What's one question that you wished I would have asked you that you would love to answer?
I'd love to address customer retention. So a lot of people, and I talk about this in my business as well, a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, I need new people. I need new people. I need new people. And I'm like, did you know that people who've already bought from you before are 80% more likely to buy from you again? So what does your email campaign look like? What does your existing social media look like? What does your surprise and delight look like for those people who are already doing business with you? You can grow your business exponentially by literally doing the things that you have with your own existing customers. And then they don't become customers, they become clients, and they have a bigger lifetime customer value. It's so much easier to convince somebody who's already done business with you to do it again, right? If you deliver on what you say you do, then it's so easy. And I think that gets skipped over a lot in marketing. So there is a book that really enlightened me to a lot of this by Joey Coleman called Never Lose a Customer Again. He has a phenomenal framework for this sort of thing where he takes you through the different pieces of it. But I think that gets skipped over time and time again. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You want to spend all this time, money, and effort. And this is hard, right? I'm about the free, cheap, and easy, y'all. Right? Piece of cake, right? Easy. And so talk to your existing customers, and then that will give you more money than you can imagine to fuel those outside, new customer acquisition campaigns that you're looking for.
I love that. That's a very solid, wisdom-based answer. Yes. Erika, great. I appreciate that so much. Well, thank you so much. Where can people connect with you after they've listened and they go, this girl is wise and can hook us up?
Yeah, so you can find me at pieceofcakemarketing.com. I have a Facebook group, Piece of Cake Marketing Society. And I launch a couple of things here, there, and everywhere. The next thing I'm launching is Piece of Cake Sales Funnels to help you figure out that it is easy to launch a sales funnel, right? Right. And lastly, I'm about to launch my very own podcast. I'm doing it in terms of seasons. And so the framework that I mentioned today is going to be the first season of that podcast. So look forward to that soon.
And what's the name of that podcast?
Piece of Cake Marketing Insights.
Perfect. We need it.
Hope so.
Thank you so much for being on the ROI Online Podcast.
Absolutely. Great to be here, Steve. Thanks.